As the fifth largest city in Oregon, Hillsboro has spent decades at the forefront of our region's housing and economic growth. And that's not by accident. It's by thoughtful community planning. More than 109,000 people call Hillsboro home, and more than 80,000 people work here. At the same time, Hillsboro has consistently been recognized as one of the most livable cities in the United States. Our community enjoys award-winning parks and libraries, exceptional public safety, bike and pedestrian infrastructure, economic opportunities and growing industries, and a variety of housing choices. So how do we thoughtfully plan for future growth and keep Hillsboro attractive and thriving? How do we maintain our small town feel while providing diverse housing options and sustain a vibrant community? I'm Steve Callaway, Hillsboro Mayor, and welcome to Community Conversations. These are the questions that we're going to be discussing today. And with us, we have Kelly Ritz, who's president at Stonebridge Homes Northwest and Venture Property Incorporated. She's the past president of the Home Builders Association of Greater Portland and currently serves on the board of Oregon Home Builders Association. We have Sam Johnson, the vice president of manufacturing and operations at Intel, and he's also the general manager of technology development at Intel. And lastly, we have Dan Diaz, who is the City of Hillsboro's Economic and Community Development Director. Thank you all for joining me today. We'll start with a few simple questions. When you think of Hillsboro, and what are the first things that come to mind? Sam?
Thank you, Mayor, for having me today. The first thing that comes to mind for me is really innovation when I think of Hillsboro. For Intel, Hillsboro is home to Intel's technology development organization. That organization is looking 10 plus years out at the latest cutting edge, technology development processes for semiconductors. Along with that charter, they're also looking at how to minimize Intel's environmental footprint. There's a ton of innovation happening around investigations in green chemistries, looking at, new first-of-a-kind abatement treatment solutions, all in an effort for us to meet our 2040 RISE goals to meet net zero greenhouse gas emissions in our global operations. Additionally, when I think about Hillsboro, it's the partnership, the spirit of partnership in the community. Intel has a long-standing history of engaging in the community, specifically around STEM programs. Our engineers love partnering with the local schools and empowering that next generation of innovators, which could likely be Intel employees at some point in the future. So, really when I think about, Hillsboro, it's really the innovation and the community engagement that really stands out for me.
Great, thank you. Kelly?
When I think of Hillsboro, I think of home, and that's not homes. I'm a resident of Hillsboro. My husband actually works across the street. My children went to school here. So I obviously have a special place in my heart for Hillsboro. But when I think of it on a bigger level, let's say a home building level, I think of it as a place that is forward thinking as far as planning, and also is extensive as far as complete communities. Hillsboro has, I think, forever been on the forefront of working to look at a jobs housing balance to make sure the community doesn't forget about its past sort of rural components, to be thoughtful on how they are doing their planning for future housing, but knowing that it's necessary, and I think trying to do that thoughtfully.
Good. Dan?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, co-panelists, for the conversation today. When I think about Hillsboro and what makes us so unique is it really is the innovation that Sam and Kelly have both touched on, but it also is the intentionality by which we go about this work. And I think back to Hillsboro has a decades-long history of trying to think about the future, but also be pragmatic in terms of the way in which we set plans and policies to be community responsive, but also to set up for opportunities that may come or that are defined And so with that innovation, I'd pair that with an intentionality. We seek to be intentional to respond to the needs of our residents, to respond to the needs of our businesses, and to be forward-looking to try to position the community to be as complete as well as smartly planned and delivered as possible.
Thank you. Your organizations have all been, really intimately involved in creating the Hillsboro that we know and love today. And so when you think about, where we are, what then are the characteristics of our community that are most important to you and your organizations?
Yeah, great question, Mayor. For me, it's really the spirit of collaboration. Really to come to the table and think through some of the biggest challenges that we face, both locally and regionally. I can think of, workforce. We've seen challenges around workforce and the efforts and, the investments that, the city has put into, the Workforce Development Consortia, AM Tech, and their investment into the Quick Start program has just been amazing. The Quick Start program, is a program that, allows students an opportunity for rewarding careers as a semiconductor technician. It's a 2-week program by which they get hands-on as well as classroom learning. And at the end of that, they have an opportunity to interview with Intel as well as other semiconductor employers in the area for an opportunity for a really rewarding communities career. So I think what's really important and what stands out to me is, the characteristics, of the city of Hillsboro is see a problem, fix a problem. And that collaboration to come to the table and figure out how we solve our problems has just been amazing.
You mentioned the workforce program, and it's an intensive 2-week program, but the students are paid for their time, so they don't have to give up work or give up income in order to participate. And it's a collaboration, with Intel, with PCC, with the governor and the state of Oregon, and also the city of Hillsboro. And having witnessed a number of the classes when they graduate, just seeing the encouragement they've received and the empowerment that they have is really exciting. And to know that they carry forward now with that expertise and that confidence, those are the kind of, again, that's a great characteristic, but also a great employee to have.
Absolutely.
So Kelly, what are the characteristics for you?
Of Hillsboro? Yeah. Well, I always have to put myself in the place of my home buyers.
Yeah,
and
right.
I have to pick locations that I think that they will like. And I think Hillsboro is right at the top for a variety of reasons. It's a beautiful area. Yeah. It still retains some of its rural feel, but it also is, I think, on the forefront of multimodal transportation, walkable, bikeable, has light rail. It has great employers like Intel. It has just about everything that's, I think, a home buyer would like. So that's to the city itself. And there could be the greatest city out there that has all the amenities, and I might still not build homes there if that city is not welcoming to the home building community. And I would say in Hillsboro recognizes to have a strong employment base, they have to have housing. It's a housing jobs balance. And so I would say that Hillsboro tries to be very collaborative. And I think that in order to address this housing crisis that the governor has announced, and I think we all feel and can see on the news, that collaboration is what is necessary to try to get ourselves out of this housing deficit. And I think Hillsboro stands ready to do that.
Great, thank you. Dan.
Thanks, Mayor. So from the characteristics that we have, I really go back to it is the strength of our economy. We have a very solid and diversified economy anchored by big companies like Intel and the 71 other, semiconductor and advanced manufacturing companies that make up the ecosystem just here in Hillsboro. That is a local benefit, but we really exist at a global and a national scale as a leader in that space tied to our economy. And then you mentioned earlier the awards that we win in terms of the place and the specialness of this community of who we are. And that gets tied to the types of jobs and the level of activity here, but also the way in which people can live and work and play all in our community, and the way that the development and the activity of the two partners here help us fund things like world-class parks and recreation systems or our amazing library systems and the like. That comes back together as characteristics. But lastly, I'll come back to it's the people. It's the people that lead our corporate partners or are building the homes for our community members. It's the people that move into those homes that become a part of this community and can continue to contribute of what has Hillsboro been in the past and what can we be in the future. And then lastly, it's our leadership. I'll borrow a quote from Andy Grove, a former Intel leader, that says, success breeds complacency, complacency breeds failure. And his quote says that only the paranoid survive. But I would like to think about Hillsboro's, we want to turn that into only the prepared survive. And so our leadership continues to look to the next, to build upon what we have been and what we are today as a community, continue to listen to that community, and then position us hopefully for future opportunities and to overcome challenges that may arise.
Thank you. You mentioned, Dan, awards and recognition, which is a perfect segue to the next question. Kelly, recently Hillsboro City Council received the Ernie Platt Public Service Award from the Home Builders Association, and it recognized Hillsboro's work in housing production, economic development, and planning for future growth. So how do these priorities that the city has most impact you and your work?
I think they're right in line, Mayor. I think I was so happy to see that the City of Hillsboro received the Ernie Platt Award. I actually had the privilege of working with Ernie over the years, and he was very much in favor of forward thinking and collaboration. And I also liked what Dan said about being prepared. You can't take advantage of opportunity if you aren't prepared for it. And you always have to be looking forward and striving for what you can do in the future. Now, everybody could do a great long-range plan, a lot of us at least, but being able to execute it is way more difficult. Being able to pivot when things aren't going our way, whether it be the economy or, usually it's the economy for me. I think that Hillsboro has done a wonderful job at trying to look forward, to be in front of housing and business. They still, like the rest of the state, are in a housing deficit. We have to build more housing. And I'm hopeful, and Dan and I have had conversations, that the city will continue to push for housing. That I think, and two things are critical for that. One of them is infrastructure, sewers and roads and all that. They're extremely expensive. They're complicated. They take a long time to plan. They take tremendous amounts of money to fund. The builders, developers pay some of that. The city, I know, covers some of that. I really believe that with the governor, really pushing for us to address our housing shortage, that the state needs to help with this infrastructure challenge that not only Hillsboro has, but all the other jurisdictions around the state have. And then lastly, I think that the city, I want to see them continue to it's great to do long-range plans, to adjust, but it's also very important to make sure that the day-to-day things get resolved quickly and that everything moves as seamlessly and quickly as possible. Usually it's permits for me, and that probably is for Intel and other employers as well.
Thank you. Sam, it's an exciting time, for Intel. And Hillsboro and Intel have had a strong partnership for over 30 years, sorry. And right now the momentum, comes from the CHIPS and Science Act at the federal government, with Senate Bill 4 and the Oregon CHIPS Act that was passed as well. And so Intel recently announced additional investments at Gordon Moore Park at Ronler Acres that could bring billions of dollars in new investment and potential for thousands of additional jobs to our city. We are used to and accustomed to Intel's successful growth that I'm not sure that everybody fully captures the significance of Intel to our community. There are 20,000 Intel employees roughly in Hillsboro. And when you think that of the 241 cities in Oregon, 2/3 of them are less than 5,000 people. So the 20,000 people that work for Intel, that puts it up into, highest population if Intel was just a city in and of itself. So, I mean, that's just a simple way to show the significance and the impact, of Intel to our community and our state. So as a global leader, here's the question. As the global leader in semiconductor design and manufacturing, what does the announcement mean for Intel and Intel's near and longer term presence in Hillsboro? And how can we as a community, not just a city organization, but as a community, support this?
Yeah, great question, Mayor. You're right. We just recently announced, our intentions to expand our R&D and manufacturing capability at Gordon Moore Park at Roller Acres. As you well know, for the past 5 decades, Intel has been a significant presence here in Oregon. From a semiconductor technology leadership perspective, I mean, we do some of the most, cutting edge technology here, in the world. It's been a hub of innovation for, a very long time. And these recent announcements about our continued investments here in Oregon are, in support of our strategic goals around, regaining, technology leadership, as well as rebalancing the supply chain as it relates to, the semiconductor market. But more specifically, what does it really mean for Intel in Hillsboro here in Oregon? It means substantial investment upgrades to our existing facilities. I will liken this announcement to a similar project that we just recently did a ribbon cutting on back in 2022. We will be looking to upgrade our facilities, our manufacturing capacity to support, our global manufacturing network, as well as drive that technology leadership. From an innovation perspective, and I kind of talked about that at the beginning, when you think about Hillsboro, you think about innovation. We will land the first high-NA tool, first of a kind tool in the world this year at Gordon Moore Park at Roller Acres. High-NA stands for high numerical aperture ultraviolet lithography. It is the latest in semiconductor technology. And again, from an innovation perspective, that tool will land here in Hillsboro. And then lastly, it really boils down to, when do we need to put the first shovel in the ground? Well, to do that, we have to initiate permits both at the local, regional, and state level. And we have started to initiate those permits to really push forward with the multi-billion-dollar investments that we have announced just recently. I think one of the important things as we continue to expand, and not just Intel, but the region as a whole, is for the city of Hillsboro to continue to support kind of the broader ecosystem and ensure that they have the ability to expand as well. It's great that Intel is going to be making multi-billion-dollar investments, but it's not only about Intel, it's about the local and region growth and expansion as well. And for that to be successful, I think Hillsboro's support and enablement of the broader ecosystem is going to be vitally important.
Thank you. As you talk about the new technology coming out of Hillsboro, it makes me think of a report that I read not too long ago, where it said if you took the number of patents generated by Intel and numerically rank them 1 to 50 in the states, it would put right in the 24 to 27, depending on the year. So you think about the innovation, the brilliance, the vision, that's coming out of Intel. The number of patents, is more than half of the United States. And that's pretty impressive to think that it's happening right here in Hillsboro. And again, that's part of that significance. It's not just for our community, but truly worldwide. So very exciting. Very exciting. So land supply and availability of infrastructure, as you mentioned, Kelly, continues to be a constraining factor, for cities to realize economic growth opportunities as well as housing needs for the region. State legislature and governor have been looking at some ways that delivery of both advanced manufacturing and housing production could be more feasible and effective. And so what are the greatest needs and priorities in this area? And Kelly, we'll start with you.
Well, I think it's going to be similar to what I was talking about before. Infrastructure, the cost of infrastructure is very high. That's the roads, that's the power, that's all the things necessary to build and expand businesses and to build homes. And I thought I just wanted to point out one of the numbers, Mayor, that you just gave, which was, I think you said there's 20,000 Intel employees in Hillsboro. And I found that interesting because I was just talking to my sales team out at Reed's Crossing, which is the new South Hillsboro, I call it the complete community, the newest community. And I've been told that 7 out of 10 of our home buyers are from Intel, are Intel employees. So if we don't think that new housing isn't building for Intel, we'd be wrong. And I think that that's kind of a good segue too about housing choice. I think that that one of the reasons we're going to need additional land, and that's going to help it's supply and demand. It's pure economics. The more housing we have, hopefully our ability to have different housing prices. That if there's not always such a shortage, it's going to actually drive the price of housing down. And also, I think that the ability to, where it makes sense to expand the urban growth boundary, so we have enough land, that will also drive down the price of land. Right now, it's very expensive, and that it directly impacts the cost of housing. From a state level, I know the state is trying a whole menu of ideas to try to help stimulate house production throughout the state. And like I said before, I think I applaud them. I don't want them, nor do I think local jurisdictions want them to tell them how to do it, how to reach that goal. They can give some suggestions. I think they really need to support those cities and counties like Hillsboro that are really trying to meet those goals and exceed those goals and plan. A great plan is everything. If you don't plan, you can never take advantage of opportunities. And so I think that whatever the state can do to help those communities that are trying to go that direction, and everybody's got to take the growth. I mean, I'm sorry, but there are some people who have their homes and who have lived next to the vacant lot next to them, and that has to become housing. And it also isn't just expansion of the UGB. It's better utilizing underutilized pieces of property inside the urban growth boundary. It's the ability to increase housing by housing type. Some condominiums, some townhomes, some single family detached, and some apartments. Some housing for people who want to buy and own their home, which we hope is a wealth generator, and some people who want to be renters. And so I think there's a lot. Housing is complicated, not always wanted, but always needed.
Yes, good. So in addition to permitting, land, workforce, housing, what else does Intel need?
I think, the city of Hillsboro is just doing an amazing job. I mean, Kelly and Dan have touched on, so many things, but I will reiterate, the housing choice, land development, not just for residential, but as well for business, workforce. All of these tenants, for me are, prime parts of economic development. Some of the things, I'll touch on just land development a little bit. When you think about, what the city of Hillsboro has done with the Northern Hillsboro Industrial District, the strategy to put forth the 50-year water supply, the Highlight Broadband, program that's providing digital access, to everyone. It's really all encompassing from an economic development. It's not really just one thing. And, I think for me and Intel, I think we want to see you continue to perpetuate all of these things because I think they've been going, so well. I've worked in various places across the world in the country in economic development. And, I would consider this to be kind of a shining star of how to go do it, how to plan, how to have the right vision, how to have the right strategy, And it's not just about the plan and the strategy, but executing on the strategy. And we have seen the city of Hillsboro do that, and we expect, the city to be a valued partner as we continue to grow and expand.
Great, thank you. Dan?
So, Mayor, from the city staff standpoint, really what we've heard today embodies how we're approaching our work. Is we have to have regularly updated but thoughtful plans looking out so we can smartly grow this complete community. We want to be very efficient with where and how we provide urban services and the land we convert from our surrounding farm and rural areas to be productive in terms of now providing homes to individuals or creating those jobs or those income generated by many of our businesses. And so for us, continue to have adequate land capacity. You hear commonalities both for housing as needed and for the continued support and expansion of our industrial base, but do that in a very thoughtful and delicate way remains at the very heart of what we're trying to do. And we're doing that not just for the sake of growth, as you've heard, we're doing that because that's what enables us to be that vibrant, award-winning community, to continue to have stability of the services we as a city provide as well, whether that be world-leading public safety services. Those fire trucks, those police cars are needed by the growth, but they also get funded by the blend of our industrial investments and our residential investments. And so that's a way in which we can manage those costs for our residents over time. I mentioned earlier about the importance of our library systems and parks, things we all as Hillsboroans love. Those are existent and in that great leading edge the way they are because we continue to have a strong economy, because we continue to have residents that are able to move here and afford to move here and add to that. And so for us, really continuing to address those fundamentals of both community planning, land, infrastructure, the workforce development systems that Sam have talked about, and then continue to innovate off of that, to use our very opening question, keep doing it even better on the next. Don't just rest on our laurels. Don't just continue to say, okay, this is it. Continue to innovate and build upon what makes Hillsboro so great. So that way, 20 years from now, hopefully those that come after us feel like we have left this city in a better spot and there's additional opportunities that they can go pursue should they choose.
Thank you. All of your answers, you just remind me as I visit classrooms and as I've visited some of the middle schools this year as well as elementary schools. And I tell the kids that the decisions we make as adults will impact their lives far more than mine. 30 years from now, I might be alive, mid-90s. It's hard to picture it, but I know for a fact, those middle schoolers will be here. And, those little third graders will be here. And I will tell you as a grandparent, there is nothing more wonderful than my kids living here locally so that we get to see them. And that goes back to job opportunities, housing and inventory opportunities so that people can work here and can live here if that's what they choose. So as we close, I'll just throw out, what's next for us with housing and economic growth. And we'll start with Dan and finish with Sam.
Sounds good. From our standpoint, Mayor, I think it really is continuing to be, as a staff and as a city organization, in tune with what the community is saying that they want, helping them understand sometimes how we plan and get there as well. And then also continuing to stay aware of and listening deeply and collaboratively with our partners in the housing space, our partners in the business and the industry space. And in doing that, we can continue to keep Hillsboro strong and well-positioned in the years ahead.
Great, thank you. Kelly?
Well, I'm going to bootstrap with Dan's, and I'll say collaboration. I hope that the home building industry and the city of Hillsboro will continue to collaborate to address this housing crisis that we're experiencing. How can we do it better? For a home builder, how can we do it quicker? How can we do it to keep our costs down as much as possible? And how can we, with state help, house our residents and our future residents in a manner that gives everybody a chance to live in a home and have a variety of housing options.
Yeah, I think what's next is, I'm going to say again, I think, the city of Hillsboro is doing an outstanding job, of economic development. But as Dan and Kelly said, it's, how do you do it better? Mm-hmm. What I would love to see continue is, staying lockstep with your partners and other agencies. Within Hillsboro, outstanding, amazing job. But for Hillsboro to be successful, it has to be a regional look. So when you think about transportation, what is the bus system going to do? What is the light rail system going to do? So as Hillsboro continues to grow, and stay on this awesome path, we want to see the region, Washington County and the state come to the table as well and make sure that, it's not hindered, it's not constrained in any way. So I think that's the broader challenge, when I talk about, making sure the ecosystem is enabled to expand. Hillsboro can do all of the right things, but if we're not partnered, with our partners and other agencies, it's going to be a challenge. But I'm going to say this is, what Hillsboro is doing is just been amazing. I mean, Dan said it best, the leaders that were here 20, 30 years ago set forth a strategy, and now we're seeing that come to fruition. And I think it's up to us here to make sure that strategy continues to perpetuate even better into the future.
There's a great saying that, leaders plant trees under whose shade they'll never sit. And
Exactly.
I kind of muddled that up, but, that's truly what, we are sitting, under the shade of leaders who came before us and planted trees. And for us to be able to do that for subsequent generations, in partnership, is really exciting work. And thank you for all that you do individually and with your organizations to make Hillsboro the city it is, and to make our region and state as strong as it is as well. And thanks to all of you who have joined today to watch. We appreciate you taking your time, and we look forward to having you back next month for another episode of Community Conversations.